Hey everyone, happy Sunday. This is actually Super Bowl weekend for us in Tampa, so it's a really strange time. So we are busy in Tampa. But today, hey, this is Coach Lottie with Empowered Money. I'm actually wanting to share, I'm hoping to make a quick video on hey, I wonder, money coaches, show me what your budget looks like. And so today I really wanted to just share with you what a money coach's budget actually looks like. And what's really important to me was I think everyone's approach to budgeting is really, really different. But I will tell you from personal experience that it's taken me a number of tries to get to the right budget that actually works for me. And what I've actually found is that a static budget does not work for me. So one of those budgets where you say, my money expense, like my expenses is this much, how much should I spend in any given, those don't work for me. And so I've found a way in which to kind of help me better understand my spending habits. And so the type of budget that I use, it comes with many names. Some of them it's like the paycheck budget. Some of them are called the plan ahead budget. I call it the rolling budget because the balances just kind of roll forward. And so I wanted to share with you how I actually created my 2021 budget and what were the factors that I put in to kind of help me get a better guide and how to have a better relationship with my budget, right? Because a lot of times we hear the word budget, we're like, it just sounds like horrible, please don't talk about it. So I think the other thing that's super important that we should really understand about budgets is that as much as we want it to be static, it really changes. And I think that is actually what makes a successful budget is the fact that you actually adjust it accordingly. And so how I broke up my budget is actually by quarter. So I do Q1, Q2, 3, and 4. And then I kind of assess based on those quarters. And I also do this thing where I do weekly planning also. But for purposes of the budget, it just seemed to make sense to do by the quarter because a lot of stuff can happen in one quarter. And when people ask me, well, I wonder why I didn't make my goal. I know exactly why you didn't make your goal because you didn't focus on the quarterly goals. And the other thing too is today's actions, like my actions this month in February, will affect my budget in December, believe it or not. And so it's just so imperative to understand that connection, right? And to ensure that everything is in congruence. So let me walk you through my budget and how it's set up. And I will share a copy of this budget with you if you are interested in the description box below. So I always start out with a high level. So I start with the main budget. So let me show that to you. Here's what the main budget looks like. And then I go on to my goals and I say, well, what do I want to achieve in 2021? I have multiple. Like this year, I've added on a business goal because I'm launching a business. And then I have so now I don't have a normal career goal anymore. I have part-time work goals. And then I've added on hobby goals because in the years prior, I really didn't have a chance to work at my hobbies. And so I want to add that on. These are all very grand ambitions for me. I tend to achieve about 85% of anything I put on paper. Definitely the money mindset. I definitely need to ensure that I'm always in alignment with that money mindset that I actually am trying to, make a principled in my life. I want to make it a part of more of my life. And then I have financial goals, I have health goals, and then I have travel goals. So multiple goals. And in theory, I write this right into my budget goal because your money goals are really not separate from your other goals. People want to believe that it is, but they're really not. I write these goals in here so that I don't forget. Oh, wait, what were you trying to do again? Because sometimes we write our goals in one sheet of paper here, and then we have our budget, and then we're like, but what are we trying to do? So this is why I put this in here. And then what I do is Q1, I can show you here. Let me just make it smaller so you can see this. So Q1, I put in each of my paychecks, which in my case, I have 24. If you have 26, you will put in 26. If you get paid weekly, you do weekly. If you get paid monthly, you do monthly. And then what I do is I put in all the Qs. So Q2, Q3, Q4, One of the schedules that I always put into every budget is my investment schedule, which is really my savings schedule. And then Christmas. And then I added this special tab for the ACA because I probably will be taking the ACA because when I leave my work, I won't have health insurance, and I'm not going to take Cobra because Cobra is just too expensive. Right now, for me, for the ACA rules, you have 60 days from the date of any what they called unforeseen circumstances to enroll. And so right now, one of the options for me is to enroll in the ACA, but I don't know yet. There's another type of health care that I'm going to look into, and I probably will make another video about that. But I think for those folks that are trying to reach financial independence, this question comes up quite often, like, hey, how do I pay for health insurance? And right, so I'm going to test out this concept for myself, proof of concept, to see, like, does it actually work, and what are the things that I can share with other people through my own lived experience of how health insurance works. So let me walk you through my budget first before we get into any further details about anything else. So what I normally do is I take my after-tax income and then I kind of pull them together and kind of get an idea of what is my cash flow. So how much money is really coming in this year, right? And so really, in theory, this one should really not be 10,000. It should really be 7,000. So I think I pulled, you could pull the right number in here. I'm going to change my budget a little bit. Okay. So the total inflow for me is going to be 32,000. Okay. And then if I go look, so the way that my budget is set up is I create a budget through what they call value-based spending versus like a static budget, or so I try to, it's not that other people don't try to spend on their values, but I'm actually more cognizant because some of the stuff that I buy doesn't make sense to other people, right? And so I try to always put in the budget, like, are you in alignment with what your values are? And so if I want something that might not necessarily make money sense, but it's something that is going to help me further, like, my mission in life, then I should buy it. And I think sometimes people fight with this, but I will warn you, it's taken me a long time to get to this position, so I'm not telling you to be irresponsible and just to go spend money on whatever, but I do want to encourage you to think about value-based spending versus that static budget that doesn't always necessarily work for everybody. So that's just something important to consider, okay? So for example, food for me is about $300 a month. I ran numbers from last year's information, and ours comes about $3,600. I do pantry challenges all the time to try to figure out, like, can we eat through everything we have before we buy more? Because food is really one of the easiest places that we can really control costs, right? My car insurance for myself in Florida is very expensive. And then I pay for my dad's car insurance, which this is probably not in other people's budgets, but it's in mine. I pay for my parents' expenses all the time. It's not normal. But I include it in my budget because I do pay for that. I pay for the internet, 3 phones. This is another area that once I leave my job, I'm going to sit down and look at the plans and see if I can bring this cost down by maybe $10 or $15 a month. That'll be additional savings. And for me, I love playing those games where I'm like, can I see if I can save $200 this year or $150 this year? So there's things like that. One thing too in my budget is I always build in like a safety margin. And so I have this high level idea of like what I'm going to spend money on. But when I get to the end and I feel like, well, you know what, the numbers aren't going to match up, what I'll just do is I'll say, can I postpone an expense to another year? Or can I find an alternative? Or I just negotiate my way through and trying to figure out how do I get what I want. So, and then charity, this I've been paying for, I don't know, the last 20 years. And then the gym, which is important to me. And then I help my sister pay for this house payment. Again, another family thing. I'm working through it, but this is part of my expenses that I did budget for this year. It's probably not going to be in next year's budget. So this is why I try not to like be too stuck on the current year budget. The other thing too is it's really important to understand that this is my budget for 2021, but it's probably going to look a lot different in 2022 because my situation will be completely different, okay? I pay for YouTube Premium, which is amazing. It's been like the best thing I could have ever bought for myself. I put in gas, $50 a month, and then I earmark some money for some taxes for part-time work. I might buy $500 worth of clothes. I don't know. I somehow tend to get gifts like somebody's baby shower, like somebody's having another baby, and then the next thing I know, I have $150 of gifts sent to their house. And so I always built in around $500 of gifts. I never know. I don't prefer gifts for myself, but somehow I find out that I'm sending $25 gift cards very often to people. So I just built it in. And this is really important to me, that I do send gifts when those opportunities do come up, if you want to call them opportunities, but those situations that do happen. And then I will put away some money to my investing. I put some money towards my coaching. Now, these are standard deviations, give or take, plus or minus $200. So these are a few things that I've already have earmarked to pay for in this coming year. And then health insurance, I built in a little bit of money in here. I'm going to go on a yoga retreat. I'm going to go to Georgia to see my sister. And then here's Christmas, which I mainly send gifts of cash. I don't really send things because I find it a waste of money. And this is my total budget for the year. And this is the remaining based on everything from the income after tax against the expenses I've earmarked for. But when I back out my savings, I am right below 25,000, which is really the number that I want to maintain, is how can I live on $25,000 by myself and be okay, right? So, our annual budget for FI is $43,000, and Daniel probably spends like by himself like $18,000. So he doesn't really have the same, like he doesn't have these home payments like I do, and he doesn't pay for his parents' things like I do. So it's a little bit different. But you know, this is the thing about budgeting, is unique to you, right? And then I write down all my goals of like, hey, what do I want to achieve that year? So I have business goals, I have part-time goals, I have hobby goals, money mindset goals, financial goals. One of the goals that I have with my budget is I always want to maintain a $10,000 balance in my checking account. And then I have this really grand goal where, not together, I want to have my own million. So this is something that I want to work towards for myself, separate from the goal that we have as a couple. And then I want to eventually pay off that mortgage on our second home. So right now it's going to have to be some miracle, because when I look at my numbers, when I look at the mortgage, there's not much to cover it. Okay. And then other health goals that I have is I love to be able to get 8 hours of sleep, like quality sleep, not stressful sleep. I need to get back to the gym again because I have gained probably like a little too many pounds over the past 2.5 years. I like to get back to intermittent fasting again, not do 16, maybe do 14. And I would love to be able to do a yoga headstand again, which I haven't been able to do in forever. So those are some of the goals that I have for fitness. And then travel goals, I definitely will be doing like a healing journey, going back home to Green Bay to kind of like go through the psychological and emotional healing that I need to have happen. I will be going to Sedona for that yoga retreat. And then if COVID vaccine works out and Daniel works out, I will probably go to Germany with Daniel and South Korea with Daniel, and Daniel will probably pick up the tab of that. So it's not going to come out of my budget. I think he likes me. He'll be okay helping me pay for that. And then other money mindset goals. These are not tangible items. These are more mental items in which I want to be in alignment with my values, be happy, live stress-free. I do not want to be stressed out anymore. I've been stressed out way too long in my life. I've gone through too much trauma. And so I feel like now I have an opportunity to really think through what I want to do now that I'm going on sabbatical. And so here are some, if you want to read through some of it yourself, live a more congruent life, have lots of great experiences, travel time, spend time with family, with friends, chilling out, read more books, I think not allowing myself to live such a stressful life is really a key factor into making goals that do work. Sometimes we want to say, well, the trauma just happened to me. I didn't really do anything, but I think we have to be able to, we have to be like, no, I'm not going to allow that to happen in my life. I think that's really important. some of the business goals that I really set for myself was really around how to become a financial coach. And so I've been really fortunate that a lot of people have trusted in me to guide them through a lot of things. So one of the first clients that trusted me was one of my friends who was sitting for the CPA exam herself. So 5 or 6 years later, she's reaching out to me saying, "Hey, Laddie, I knew you passed the exam, so help me get through it." And so what I started noticing was that pattern of coaching somebody through the examination was showing up also in my money clients. And so here are some of the clients that I've been working with in terms of exploring programs and kind of like testing out my own coaching. Am I listening? Am I cut out to be a coach? And so this was really fascinating to me to be able to keep these metrics and kind of take tabs on where I'm at. And then make a business plan. This is something that, let me go back to this real quick. Attend the symposium in Arizona. I thought about this and then I realized when I looked at my budget, I'm not really sure if this is something that is in alignment kind of like with where I'm at in the current year. And so I actually made this kind of dark gray. I may come back to it. I may not come back to it, but sometimes I forget things. And so I write these out to kind of help remind me of some of the goals that I do have. Make a business plan, get a website, get one paying client, create a YouTube channel with my sister, create a YouTube channel for my business coaching. So I'm taking positive actions toward these things. I also have one housekeeping item here, get my license back for my CPE, for my CPA. So I'm a little bit behind for Florida, so I got to get that back. Let me go back to making a business plan and getting a website. I've been really hesitant in trying to get these things up and going because I didn't want it to be this like superficial shell plan where it was like I did it just to kind of make myself feel good, check off the box, but I really wasn't using it. And same thing with my website. I really wanted something that I really wanted to be proud of and something that I could really write about. And so I never felt like getting a website made me official. What made me official was being confident in the clients and being able to help them, even if I'm not like a full-blown client just yet. So it's just kind of like my goals, part-time goals. I needed to put this here because I've never not worked. And so not having a work goal is really strange to me. And then I have these hobby goals in which I do want to learn Laotian again and Thai. So these are the languages that I grew up with, but I've actually gotten away from it and I don't use it as much as I want to. And so I'm trying to learn this on my spare time now that I have more bandwidth, I think, to work on these things. So those are my goals. And I make sure like somehow, not every one of these goals will somehow make it into my budget, but I like to say when there is an opportunity for this, I'd like to revisit this because this was important to me last year when I built this budget. And a lot of them are still important. As you can see, I've updated a few, taken some off, but a lot of them are still very important to me. So let me talk you through, let me make this smaller. Let me talk you through my budget itself. So this is what I call a rolling budget in the sense that what actually happens is I plug in all of my paychecks in each of the pays. And then I take a look at the cash flow. One of the things I always have to do is in all the budgets I ever done is I put in this conditional formatting here that says, hey, if this budget turns less than $10,000, make the numbers turn red, which it will. So let me show you. So see here, I overexpended by $100,000, and so the balances have turned red to show me, hey, whoa, you're not meeting your goal. That is really important for me because that is actually one of the main goals that I do keep. And so there's that. So here is some of the stuff that when I highlight it in pink, it means it's already done. And so here is also another example of how I actually manage within this is I like to understand how much is my FICA taxes, like how much in taxes am I really paying? Because when we talk about why you cannot save, let's not forget why you cannot save. Some people cannot save because the bulk of their money is going to taxes, right? And so if you're making like $80,000, for example, and if your tax is like $1,274, you're probably not living on $80,000, right? You're probably living on something like 75% of $80,000. And so if you're going to try to save 50%, it's not going to make any sense and it's going to feel very overwhelming. And so sometimes I like to put this in here to remind the client, like, let's just look at your FICA withholdings and see if there's opportunity areas there in which we can say, bring the withholdings down if you're going to get a refund, for example. that is not every client, but those are the things that I look for when I'm helping somebody build a budget. And then what happens is I carry these balances forward every time we spend. And sometimes, like certain clients I have, they play these games in which they're like, hey, let me see how many pay periods in which I was above my $1,000 emergency fund. And I think what that does is it shows them that, hey, they do have a success rate, and that there's just a few time frames in which, say, for example, they're 50% above the $1,000 emergency fund marker and 50% below, or if they're like 50% within a range. And so I think what happens is on your journey to your financial goals, it's not a pass fail, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, you failed. It's progress. It's progress towards your goal. And so I feel like these are really important metrics in which you put in your budget to kind of help you get a pulse on like, how are you doing? How are your behavior being rewarded? So for me, for example, I know that I'm going to be seeing my sister in Georgia. So I plug this number in here. This is what I think I'm going to spend. I built in 2 financial coaching sessions so that I can get some coaching to deal with some of my anxiety that I have. So I built that in here because that's value-based spending for me. And I'd like to have that done as soon as I'm done working. So that's why I built this into this budget. And then I'm going to buy the flight, get my car serviced, buy another course for my marketing that I need to understand, and I'm going to fund my Roth account in mid-March. So these are things that I'm like, okay, I can see that it's going to be possible. I'm going to be able to do it. And so it excites me to keep moving forward, right? And so I have $23,000 left in Q1. Then when I look at Q2, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to work the balance carry forward here. And then Q2, it's mainly going to be about clarity, productivity, work style, decluttering my life, using the KonMari method. And so I've been using the KonMari method since 2016, but I think it doesn't hurt to continue to always declutter your life and then launch the business and set it up. So a lot of stuff is automated. And so Q2 for me is really about decompressing and then working on my business 100%. And I'm actually riding the momentum wave from my last job. So it's kind of like tricking my brain to just kind of say, okay, you're still working. And so using that momentum for my own business. And then what I'm going to do is also in the month of May, I want to buy this GoPro. So I built it in so that I could buy this GoPro because I'm looking to get back into some like travel videos again. And so I built this in here. So that I can buy that. And so again, I'm not below 10,000. And then I'm going to go on that yoga retreat, as you can see here. So I'm going to go on that yoga retreat. And then the other thing for Q3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out TaskRabbit and other side hustles as a way to help some of my clients who are not college graduates or knowledge workers. And it's a way to kind of help them feel dignified, right? Because TaskRabbit, it's not necessarily all labor-intensive work, but it's like they have the option to curate the work that they want. And it teaches them to also be a little bit of an entrepreneur, right? Because you're self-employed, you're kind of trying to get the work that you need. You're competing with other people to get the job. And so it's not just like your Amazon driving job, for example. It's a little bit more involved. And so I'm going to test that out with my client to see if that's a viable side hustle. So that's something work that I need to do for that. And then I just plug my numbers in. And then also what I'm going to do is, as you can see, this green is actually where I'm going to be doing some of the part-time work. You know, everything right now this far is kind of like planning. And so I think I'll make $1,200 every 2 weeks, or I might not make $1,200 every 2 weeks. I really don't know. But what I can always do is these house payments that I make to help my sister, I can just tell her, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. If you want to pick this up, she can go back and pay a normal mortgage like everyone else. So I have safety mechanisms built into this budget, and hypothetically say that, you know, I don't want to work these last 2 months, or it's not $1,200, it's less than that. I could really just take them out and still be under my threshold of 13,000 here. So even with these, I've built in kind of like safety safety margins to make sure that even if I didn't want to do this, I changed my mind, that will still be okay. This is just really important that we do have this in my budget. And then, the investment schedule is like super important to me. I look at this number as a way to really, I like saving. And so even in a year in which I don't have a lot to save, I still like to save. And, I always try to look at a rate and not necessarily like a dollar figure because, 10,000 on 11,000 is a huge number and great job. 10,000 on 100,000 is what are you doing with your money? Why are you not saving more, right? So those dollar amounts don't necessarily impress me. I care more like what is your percentage of your salary are you saving, okay? And then Christmas, I never know how Christmas is gonna go, but I always know for a fact I always send money to my nieces and nephew every year, and then for the adult, it just varies. I don't sit there and think too much about that. $11.45 a year on Christmas, whatever. And then the ACA is something that I'm going to explore further and figure out later. So, which is what I had spoken about earlier in the year. But anyways, so that is actually my budget, and that's how I actually go through each of the quarters and try to figure out like what is an appropriate number for me and how I actually budget and how I keep sane with everything else going on in my life. So I think what's really important is to be mindful that things can change. Like it's perfectly okay. Like don't feel compelled to always keep this like super stringent budget and that there's no flexibility in it. I think that there should be flexibility in the budget and that you should be responsive to the opportunities showing up in your life. And so this is why you budget, right? You budget so that you can be responsive to opportunities that show up. And so if it's simple $200 to get something that you might need to move the needle forward, then you should find money in your budget to make it happen, right? Value-based spending, and not be such a stickler like, oh no, we don't have it in our budget. Maybe you do have it in your budget, but you just need to look a little bit deeper. I know for a fact there's a few orange areas in which I need to call the vendor and call the telephone company and be like, can we get a cheaper rate on this, etc. But anyways, if you want a copy of this rolling budget, I can send it to you. I will put a copy of it in the description box. And I will also put my email address in there if you want to connect with me. If you have questions about, hey, I don't understand the formula, how does this work? Email me and I can connect with you on that. Additionally, if you want a 45-minute free session for me to help you get through the budget, just I left you my calendar link below. Connect with me through there. Just make your schedule or find time in your schedule, and we definitely can connect on that. So I want you to feel empowered, and I want you to feel like you curate your life. So have a good time working on this budget because really it's like working on your life. So enjoy the day, and I will chat with you later. Bye now.